Welcome back to Boilers in the Stands. I'm your host, Joe Jackson. Alongside me, as always, is my co-host, Craig Bowers. We are here to preview Purdue versus Rutgers today. Purdue goes to New Jersey. It's going to take on the Scarlet Knights. It is an 8 o'clock Eastern Time tip on FS1 on Tuesday, December 2nd. Purdue's first Big Ten game of the season, as the Big Ten has gone to having these kind of two conference games in early December. Then you have a little bit of a break and finish out, obviously getting back to Big Ten play starting in January. Craig, I'll throw it to you. What are kind of your thoughts going into Big Ten play? How many times are we going to hear about the Ron Harper buzzer beater, and just kind of your overall thoughts on Rutgers?
Well, based on the amount of times that I've just been randomly asked about those games and what Purdue has to do to not have another unexpected upset going into early Big Ten season, I'm going to guess you're going to hear about it a lot, both on TV and in mentions on Twitter from Purdue fans and everybody else in between. But this Purdue team historically has not been great in that first Big Ten game of the year. I think they've gone 8 years now where they've done this early December start, pause, and then go into January. Purdue is only 2 of 6 in that opening game matchup. They had a loss to Rutgers in one of those, had a loss to Penn State, had a loss to Northwestern. So not necessarily real high-profile teams that they've gotten knocked off by either. So I understand like the angst from Purdue fans from that standpoint, because you just never know what's going to happen in this opening week.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a weird time where teams are still just kind of figuring themselves out, but it's a very meaningful game, a very impactful game, obviously for seeding. And as Purdue is chasing a Big Ten championship, like this is one you kind of just need to have, like just straight up to especially given kind of what the top end of the Big Ten looks like. Rutgers, we'll talk about them in a sec. Not a good team right now. They truthfully aren't, and this is a game that Purdue should be able to take care of business, and hopefully this doesn't add to the loss column there. So, kind of talking team overview for Rutgers, Craig. I'll throw it to you. Kind of let you talk through the overview of them.
Yeah. So Rutgers team that comes in at 5-3 with losses to Central Connecticut, Tennessee, and Notre Dame. So a couple, decent sized programs names in that list, but you also throw in the loss to Central Connecticut. That's not real good. They do pick up one win against UNLV, and then everybody else was pretty low on the old KenPom meter that they managed to get a win against. Pick 17th coming into Big Ten conference play by media. The Feed the Post weekly poll run by Mr. Joe Jackson, currently has them ranked 18th in the Big Ten. They return 20.8% of their minutes and only 14.4% of their scoring. A team that comes in ranked 118th in KenPom overall, 155th in offense, and 101st in defense. This is not a team that's going to want to really get up and go and try to run. They try to muddy it up, muck it up, play some intense half-court defense, make things difficult on you. Because of that, the tempo is only 304, or 304th ranked in KenPom. So a team that, from a tempo standpoint, is going to be closer to what Purdue plays than not. As you look
Yeah,
at some of these other, as you look at some of these other just metrics from any of the analytics, what jumps out to you on this Rutgers team about maybe what they do well or what they don't do, or what the numbers tell us about them?
yeah, I think so. One thing that stands out is if you go to Bart Torvik, another analytics site. Um, if you filter for just high majors, Rutgers is the worst high major per Torvik in the country. That has obviously isn't ideal for a team. But looking at just kind of their numbers in general, the 3-point percentage has been better than I expected. They still don't take a ton of them, but they're a little bit above average, above D1 average. Have done a good job on the offensive glass, drawing fouls. Although I do think some of that's attributed just to playing weaker competition early and having bigger guys. Have had pretty good success defensively inside the arc. Again, I think that's kind of factored by some of the competition they've played, but this isn't a team that's forcing a ton of turnovers. They're basically right at D1 average. And if we think back to honestly, some of the teams that have given Purdue trouble in early years, like Penn State turned Purdue over a gajillion times. I would bet that going back to that Rutgers game where they won, I would bet Rutgers turned Purdue over a good chunk. And that's just not quite who Rutgers is this season, at least as for right now.
Yeah, and from a defensive standpoint, as you look at this team, as I was kind of quickly just glancing through Ken Palm, I was like, oh, all right, they're defending the paint pretty well, but they're giving up a lot of threes in terms of percentage of shots that are put up, and they're giving up a pretty high percentage on those threes as well. But then I dug a little bit deeper and actually went and like looked at the numbers specifically for Tennessee and Notre Dame, and they're not defending the paint well either when it comes to
No.
playing high major teams. I think Tennessee got 45% of their points in the paint. Notre Dame was around there as well, and they shot 65% at the rim, 57% in the paint. Did Tennessee against them in both of those games? Tennessee offensive rebounding percentage was 47%, Notre Dame 43%. Second chance points were off the chart. Man, I don't know. I think everybody who's listened to this show the last couple of years knows that I am a Pikel fan. And I think he was trying to get back to those Rutgers teams of old that didn't really have a huge name on their roster, and they were really gritty, maybe not the most skilled guys in the world, but could really get up into the ball, high defensive pressure, muck it up, figure out a way to just get some buckets on the offensive end and pull out some wins. And the problem is this team doesn't have your Mawat Mag, your Paul McCahey, your Cliff Omarui, Murray, sorry. Not no Ron Harper Jr., no Geo Baker. Like they don't have that one or two guards that are really shot creators, just bucket getters, and they don't have just elite defensive guys either.
Yeah, that was the concern coming into this season is like there was all the like, oh, Pike will get this team back to being gritty, but it's like you look back through those teams, and I'm not discrediting Peichel because he obviously was able to build something out of guys that were generally under recruited. Uh, but there's still got to be some level of talent, and right now this Rutgers team just doesn't have it. Um, Dylan Grant, we'll talk about the players in a sec. Dylan Grant's been the one guy that kind of pops, and like there's a couple players that have had nice moments, but nothing has been like a consistent level.
Yeah, why don't we kind of turn to the players some, and then we can get into a little bit more about what Rutgers wants to try to do offensively and defensively. A team that doesn't shoot, you mentioned that they get fouled a decent amount, at least early on in the season. Don't necessarily shoot it from the free throw line all that well once they get there, though, so that's problematic. I do think Dylan Grant is the guy that kind of pops off on this team as you look at them as somebody that can do things offensively and with his size and length and his ability to get downhill, might be able to have some success against Purdue. 6'8", 220-pound sophomore, 15.6 points, 6.6 rebounds, and zero point 0.8 assists a game. He's currently shooting 44% from three, although it's on pretty low volume, but he is willing to take them and currently is hitting them. To me, he's just a really long, athletic, energy guy. He does get downhill and finish pretty well at the rim. Rewatch that Notre Dame game today. Thought he finished well in that game. If you guys remember from last year, he was the unheralded freshman on that team and ended up carving out a decent amount of minutes for him last year just because he was kind of that glue energy guy. And now he's kind of been thrust in the role of, hey, you've got to go be the primary offensive creator, or not creator, but offensive bucket getter on this team.
Yeah, he's had. I mean, he's had a good season. He has been one of the bright spots probably for this team so far. Um, just like you said, he's knocked down some threes, and it's not super high volume, but he's knocked down enough where you probably have to respect it. Getting to the free throw line a ton, knocking those down as well, and has kind of the lankiness and athleticism to convert at the rim. Most of his shots are either going to be at the rim or from three. One of the few players probably on this team that kind of follows the three and rim type model. It's a little like you'll watch him drive and it's kind of like goofy and it's like how does he quite get there, and then he just kind of does. Kind of a really high dribble, is explosive but isn't going to like blitz by guys, and but still at the same time gets to his spots and causes a lot of havoc for teams. Like I think he's a very good first test for kind of TKR at the four, at least in terms of having to really match up with like this hyper scoring forward, right? He's guarded a couple guys who've been on the perimeter more, like Bull Bowen and I'm blanking for Texas Tech. I guess
Coffin?
he got was he on top in
Well, he
the
didn't
start?
really guard. No, he really didn't guard Toppin much. That was Clough.
Bam Boy, six. He was the other guy.
Yeah.
I don't know, but regardless, Grant's good enough where it's like he can pose some issues to TKR at the four for sure. Is he going to be the best scoring four that TKR has to match up against this season? No, but he's still somebody that can kind of pose some problems there. And he is going to drive right. Like I mentioned, the handle's kind of goofy at times. Like he's not comfortable going left. He is going to drive to his rights. But as of right now, nobody's been able to consistently stop it. Also, a couple other things. Good rebounder, both on the offensive and defensive glass. Probably second best rebounder on the team. Can get some deflections defensively. Can provide some like secondary rim protection, things of that nature as well.
Yeah, and their one paint presence that does provide a high defensive upside on this team is Emmanuel Agbole, who comes in at 6'10", 260-pound senior. He's been around on this team for quite a while now, but certainly again into a bigger role. 7 points, 7.5 rebounds. Big thing here for me with him is 1.8 blocks. Outside of the rebound, 1.8 blocks per game. It was really, really noticeable in that Notre Dame game when he wasn't on the court because he had some monster blocks when Notre Dame tried to get to the rim. But man, as soon as he was off, Rutgers really, really struggled to contain Notre Dame from getting into the paint and scoring at the rim. Good Lord, Joe. I'm struggling today.
It's all good. Yeah, Agbole, he's been. I mean, he's been solid, especially in his rim protecting roles, rebounding. Again, small caveat that like it's been against weaker competition. Did go for 21 and 13 against UNLV, and I watched that game in full. Like UNLV just had literally no answer for him inside. They also had nobody close to the size of like Oscar Clough for them. So I don't not as concerned about that. More of a roller. You got the UNLV game is the only time really this year that he's really worked in the post. And like I said, that was more of just like UNLV did not really have a guy that was like over 6'8" that could guard him. Um, but he's done good in his role. Still going to play. Still gets into some foul troubles, which can kind of cause his minutes to go up or down. Um, if like he should play a lot more in this game. There are games where they can opt for just like a super athletic lineup if they want. And maybe we'll see that. We'll talk about those guys in a sec. But just has been like solid overall. Not a stretch shooter. Bad free throw shooter. But he's 6'10" and he is jacked. Like he is just absolutely jacked. And
Mhm.
right, he's somebody that can at least try to push Clough around for sure.
Yeah. And like I said, I think a guy, right, that's not necessarily, I mean, they're not going to be throwing the ball into him and just ask him to make major post moves, right? Going to be more
Yeah.
off of second chance points and lobs or that type of thing. Um, as we move to kind of the starting guards here, Jamichael Davis is probably the name that Purdue fans will recognize the most from what's left on this list. 6'2", 180-pound junior. Kind of flashed early and then took a back seat behind Harper and Ace Bailey in that group that was there last year, averaging 9.5 points a game and 3 assists this year, primarily at the shooting guard, but will play some point guard as well. Shooting really well from three this year, 53%, but only on 2.4 attempts per game. Not typically career wise near that high. So will be interesting to see if that continues. But a guy that can score, wants to score at all three levels. We'll try to get to his mid range. We'll try to get to the rim. He's been shooting much higher from outside this year than from inside, taking 36 twos to only 19 threes. So he still does want to get downhill. I guess as you've watched him this year, are we starting to see more of that guy that we saw at the very beginning of his career that looked like he had so much promise?
Um, a little bit. Now like you said, the interior numbers are still just a struggle. He's shooting like somewhere around like 35% at the rim, which is really bad. But he's taken that step again of being one of the lead facilitators on this roster. Like you said, he shot the ball really well. I don't know if it holds or not, but even if it doesn't hold to the level it's currently at like 53%, him getting to 40% on decent volume is definitely a big step up for him. Can be a physical defender, and I don't think it's been quite as good as maybe I was hoping so far, but he's still a very good defender, can be physical, can get into guards' pockets. So he's somebody that assume will be guarding Braden if I were to guess. And Braden's, I mean, matched up with him at least twice, 2 or 3 times now. So he'll be aware of him for sure, but it's somebody that you have to at least be on the lookout for. Only other thing is he's drawing fouls at a good rate. Again, maybe that's just because of the competition, and that'll subside kind of as the season progresses. But he has gotten to the line a good bit.
And as we look at the point guard spot, Tariq Francis, is it Tariq or Tarek?
Tariq.
Tariq. Oh, man, I had this down when I was watching earlier, and I forgot between now and then. That's my bad. 6'1", 180-pound junior transfer from New Jersey Institute of Technology. Actually, the second leading scorer on this team at 13 points. Also averages 3 assists. So him and JaMychal kind of split the creation for others' duties on this team. Is a guy, his splits are even from 2 and 3, 39 shots from both. Will try to score at all 3 levels. 96% from the free throw. Whoa, that can't be right. That he's 96.
Yep.
I must have typed that. 96% from the free throw line.
25 of 26.
Man, his stats are so good. I thought I had a typo, Joe. from that range. Only shooting 33% from 3, but a decent 3-point shooter on 4.9 attempts a game.
He's shifty, undersized point guard that is more of a volume scorer than maybe a pure efficient scorer. Has shot his shot free throws really well. I'm looking at his career stats, 84% from the line for his career on 200 attempts. Good facilitator, isn't going to turn the ball over too much. I think he's a worse on-ball defender than JaMychal Davis overall, but he's somebody that can be pesky in like passing lanes or just kind of try to rip people. So he can do his damage defensively a little bit differently. More of a pure jump shot taker. Doesn't get to the rim that much at all this season, and most of it when he does is in transition. He is going to take pull-ups, and he is going to take a lot of them. He's comfortable working on and off ball. He'll run pick and rolls, or they have some sets where he'll kind of be standing in the corner and get some off-ball stuff ran for him. Just somebody that Purdue has to definitely be aware of. I would guess CJ guards him to start. I would think so, and Brayton takes Davis. But if they're worried about maybe potential foul issues, maybe Brayton takes Francis and CJ takes Davis. But regardless, I think he's somebody that just, like I said, is going to take a lot of jumpers, going to have the ball in his hands a good bit, but is a willing facilitator as well.
Last starter on the roster, small forward, Dennis Badalow. Did I get that one right?
Badalow? That's
Yeah.
close. I think
I
Badalow.
think we're gonna call it. We're gonna call it close enough. I will do better. I will do better. I usually type out the phonics on these, and I just ran out of time today. So, 6'8", 200-pound freshman coming in, averaging 7 points, 2.6 rebounds, 1.4 assists. Only 30% from 3, but shooting 4.1 attempts a game. I didn't have a whole lot written down on him from the game that I watched. I just kind of thought not necessarily a super athletic guy. Thought he had a couple of decent mid-range shots in there. Talk to us about what he brings to this team.
Yeah, he was brought in from overseas to kind of be the shooter of this roster. Now he hasn't shot the ball well and has really struggled against high-level competition. In the Tennessee Notre Dame game, he won a combined 1 of 9 for 3, 10 of 33 from 3 on the season. Worth noting in terms of like starters, he did get benched for the entire second half against UNLV. Peichel opted for a lot of athleticism with some guys we'll talk about coming up. Maybe it was a 1-game thing. Maybe it's something more significant, and Badalow's going to see his minutes start to decrease, but more of just a pure off-ball shooter, off-ball scorer. Not a good defender really at all. Struggles to move laterally. He's brought in to be a shooter, and the shots just haven't fallen, both from 3 and from 2 early on. Now, if you're a Purdue fan, I'm assuming you're probably thinking like, oh, okay, so he'll go 7 of 8 from 3 against Purdue. But
yeah, and if you're brought in to be the shooter and you're not super athletic and you're not a plus defender on a Steve Peichel team and you're not hitting shots, you're going to have trouble staying on the court too long. I think obviously from the bench, the other guy that we got to bring up is Darren Buchanan, 6'7", 235-pound junior, averaging 8.6 points, 2.6 rebounds. Transfer from George Washington, shooting 43% from 3, but has only taken 7 on the entire season. Seems to be a guy that really wants to get into the paint and try to score at the rim, where he's shooting 81% on the year.
He can be kind of this jumbo creator type. Um, he like I'm looking through and his assist numbers are honestly a little bit better than I expected. He at times, oh, he had 5 against Maine. That kind of carries it. Um, he's gonna put his head down and try to get to the rim. Like that's kind of his whole MO is this physical, like he's not super athletic, but just strong base, strong body. Another guy that like is going to drive to the right. And oftentimes Rutgers will run sets where he essentially gets the ball at the elbow and they basically clear out of the way to try to create a driving gap for him to get to that right hand. That's what he wants to do, and that's the biggest thing he provides. And looking through, like, yeah, most of his shots do come at the rim on this season. Has some like secondary facilitating to him where at times he can kind of make good decisions, but he's somebody that can be really sped up, can make some poor decisions. Defensively, I don't think he's like awesome. I don't think he's the worst, but I don't think he's been like elite on that end by any means. But like you said, he's somebody that can be a big scoring punch for this team and somebody that Purdue will definitely have to be aware of whether he's coming off the bench or if he does somehow not somehow if he does potentially get like a starting spot.
Yeah. You got Bryce Dortch, 6'9", 210-pound sophomore who kind of backs up at center. Not a big time scorer, only 2.3 points a game, only 3.3 rebounds per game. Um, what's Bryce bring as a backup to Emmanuel?
He's the really athletic option if they wanted, where he's undersized, but then they can throw out some pretty athletic lineups that can switch a lot if they need to. He doesn't automatically switch everything. He can be in drop coverage. He can be in hedge. We'll talk about that more when we talk about the defense in a sec. Isn't like offensively, they aren't going to throw the ball into him in the post. He isn't going to be, really dribbling at all. It is more of just lobs or drop offs or putbacks off the offensive glass. Has some lankiness, can help protect the rim to some degree. Isn't going to be super high usage though. He's definitely the backup center for a reason.
And then there's a trio of freshmen who all come in, and in all honesty, it feels like just looking through some of those games in the last couple of weeks, it feels like they've been getting a little bit more time and trust from Peichel out there. I know you mentioned some athleticism, so I'm sure you were talking about a couple of these guys. I'll let you kind of highlight who you want to talk about out of those three freshmen.
Yeah, Lino Mark is. I'm going to talk about him first, just because I was pretty high on him coming into this season. Scoring has not been there. It hasn't. He's shooting 0 of 7 from three, 4 of 14 from two. I think long term it'll be fine, but he's getting on the floor right now because of his defensive energy and his defensive intensity. Against UNLV, he played 13 minutes, and it was primarily just because of what he brought defensively. During that time, he was the best defender on the floor for them. Can run points. The offensive game is going to take some time to catch up. Just kind of naturally how it can go for some of these freshmen. Chris Newooly, he's 6'8" forward. He is athletic, like majorly athletic, arguably the most athletic player in the entire freshman class last season. And if he isn't one, he's definitely way up there. Somebody that at 6'8" can switch a lot, can guard on the perimeter, can help protect the rim a bit. Offensively, is not skilled at all right now. Very kind of raw in his skill set. It's kind of put your head down and drive and hope something good happens, and oftentimes it hasn't. Although he has gotten to the free throw line a good bit, but again, him and Mark are kind of similar, although they play different positions. Of like they're getting run right now because they just want to. They have the energy and they have the defensive capabilities, and that's the main reason that they're out there. And then the other freshman, Harun Zerno, who's I'm gonna look up his age. I believe he's another one that's a pretty old freshman. Uh, yeah, Zerno's 21, almost 22 right now. So freshman in air quotes. He was also kind of brought in alongside Badalo as like a shooter. Similar story of the shots not really falling, the defensive energy isn't really there. He did have a good game against Tennessee, and where he was able to knock down three threes. But he's very similar to Badalo, just like, yeah, shooter, maybe a couple dribbles and pull up, but not a whole else lot to his game. And also similar to Badalo, I believe did not play the entire second half against UNLV.
To that point, he's only taken 3-point shots this year so far. I don't think he's recorded a two-pointer, if I remember right.
He's taken he hasn't made a 2-pointer. He's 0 of 5
Okay, he
and he's
hasn't
8 for
made one. My
24 from
bad.
3. Yeah.
Gotcha. All right. So as we kind of turn to what Rutgers is going to do defensively, offensively, try to let's start with defense because that's kind of what Purdue fans know about Rutgers in typical years that they tend to be a team that plays a high pressure defense, really gets in up into the ball, makes things difficult, mucks it up, wants to try to create some turnovers, but more than anything, I think just wants to make it very difficult on you to get a good shot. Is this that same type of Rutgers team in terms of what they want to do? And are they doing it?
They're not doing it. Definitely. Whatever their identity wants to be, it's not there right now. And that's where this defense is at. As I think they're still just really searching to figure out exactly who they are. Right. In an ideal Pikel world, it is a high pressure got team that has multiple guys that they can just throw out there and create havoc. That's where like the if Lino Mark and Chris Newuli start playing a lot more, that's where you can get some fun lineups of like Davis, Mark, Newuli, Grant, and like Dort, who's um, that's when you can get some real athleticism. You can switch everything. You can apply some pressure. But there's also right, Abole is like the true rim protector. Um, and basically, where Rutgers is at right now is they're kind of in a mix. Like they can play drop against certain coverage against certain teams. They'll be in a high hedge some other times. They want to like help on drives and try to dig in and poke balls free, but it hasn't felt quite as committed as maybe some of the years past, where it's just like constant hounding and just forcing turnovers left and right. They've had to go to a different like zone and press at different times this season. Those haven't been great either. This just really feels like a team right now defensively trying to figure out who they want to be. Um, if you're the worried Purdue fan, I'll add a little bit of fuel to the fire there. It's like they might have started figuring things out against UNLV, like I've brought up 5 times now with the bench lineup and a lot of athleticism. Also, UNLV is worse than Rutgers, so take that with a grain of salt, maybe as well. But that's kind of what they want to do defensively, and I would expect them to throw multiple coverages at Braden, just to try to mix things up. I think I'm pulling it up. I think Braden had like 15 assists last year. Yeah, Braden last year against them had 16 points and 14 assists. So has had some success against this Rutgers team recently, although it's a completely
Yeah,
different roster, I guess now.
and teams have shot well from three against this team. And just watching it felt like when they did have to help, like their rotations, their closeouts, everything were slow, whether they weren't communicating or just weren't instinctively doing it. Guys, especially that Notre Dame game, were getting lots of wide open looks from three. And then specifically to the two power conference teams that they played, still managed to score down low with relative ease. And one of the things I really noticed was like their spacing on pick and roll, I thought was terrible. There were so many times somebody threw a bounce pass just right between the two guys in hedge, and it's like, man, that's not the way you do that. If you want to do that successfully, Notre Dame carved them up from there a little bit as well. Even though that Notre Dame Rutgers game ended up kind of being close down to the wire, right until towards the last couple of minutes. So, um, offensively, is this team going to run a lot of action? Is it a lot of pick and roll? Is it a lot of ISO? What are we going to see out of Rutgers? And what should Purdue be worried about from a defensive standpoint?
Yeah, they're a mix between like pick and roll, ISO. They're generally a little bit more just kind of one-on-one creation, not like an insane amount of ball movements. They still like they will run stuff, but often it is to like just try to give some guy either like a one-on-one advantage or running off of like a screen. Like I know I said earlier, like Darren Buchanan, they'll or even Dylan Grants for this, like they'll throw him the ball at the left elbow, basically run some decoy action off ball, so that way there's trying to be a driving gap. They run a lot of stuff out of horns, which is like two bigs at the elbow, two guys in the corner, where like it might be just like a high pick and roll and you work from there. Or sometimes they both bigs act like they're going to set a screen and then immediately go set pin downs, and all that is doing is trying to create isolation. So like they'll run stuff, but it is still a lot built on just trying to get one-on-one advantages. They're a team that will take a lot of shots from the mid range. They have one of the lowest rim and three rates in the country right now. Have converted at the rim when they get there, but haven't gotten there all that much, especially given kind of the competition that they've played. So a lot of on ball creation, a lot of mid ranges, a lot of just kind of one on one try to beat your guy.
As we look at Purdue matching up defensively against this team, I know you've already kind of talked about where you thought Braden and CJ might match up. I think even though Fletch is going to have to match up against a guy who's listed at 6'8", it's a pretty decent matchup for him. Not somebody that's super athletic that's going to be blown by him by any means if he starts again. Is your assumption TK will start on Grant?
I would assume so. I don't think they would put Clough on him. Um, if they feel comfortable putting him on Grant, I think that's a pretty good sign for Purdue where they believe in Clough. Again, I don't expect that to happen, and I don't think it's a negative that he'll start on Obole, but more of just like if they trust him that much to be able to guard those like scoring fours, it can make some matchups a bit easier down the road.
All right. Offensively, where should this Purdue team be able to make their hay against Rutgers?
As long as they take care of the ball, and I know I've said it's not like a super high pressure team. This is a defense that hasn't been awesome. They've, like you said, they've given up a lot of open threes this season, and teams have shot really well. So Purdue's going to have to be able to knock down threes, which it is on the road. So like in one of the tougher arenas in the Big Ten. So it's not like an automatic that Purdue will do that. But other than that, I think it's just you got to dominate the front courts, and that's going to be a common theme for most Purdue matchups. But if Grant's on TKR, like TKR is going to have the size advantage. Clough and Jacobson both have size advantages over Abole, at least in terms of heights. But just being able to dominate down low. This isn't a great defensive rebounding team, so crashing the glass hard. And then from there, right, I expect Braden to be able to kind of pick apart really whatever coverage Rutgers tries throwing at him.
This feels like a game to me that's going to be a really high potential assist game for Braden. It
Yeah.
feels like when guards get into the paint, like I said, they collapse and they're not real quick about closing back out. Feels like he'll be able to get in the paint and kick out. I also think this is a game where TK getting that in the short roll or in post up, either one, there's going to be chances for kickouts there too, hitting CJ in the corner like he's done a lot, especially at the start of games this season so far. But like you said, the bigs should still be able to dominate down low. So let's go ahead. That's a nice transition to keys to the game. That's where I'm going to start. The offensive rebounding percentage that Rutgers gave up to Tennessee and gave up to Notre Dame. My first key would just be to absolutely crush them on the offensive glass and second chance points. That's where Purdue has really, I think, turned the corner after the first two games when TK came back, and I would expect to see it to continue this game.
Yeah, I think for me, it's basically just to not play with their food. Like we've seen from a few games, and Rutgers obviously is better than like Eastern Illinois and Evansville, but we've seen a few times this year where Purdue just kind of like gets along for 10, 15 minutes, and then they turn it on, and then right, it's a good win. Don't let Rutgers do that because now this is a true road environment, and even if Purdue's the better team, right, you just don't want to be in that spot where you're up or down three with 5 minutes left. This Purdue team is a team that should handle Rutgers, and they just need to come out right away and play like that.
One thing that's interesting to me as I think about this now is with the Big Ten in December, it feels like most years that was Purdue's first true road game. I guess there was some. What was when they had the Big Ten Big East Challenge every other year they would have a road game
Yeah.
like at Marquette maybe before that, but primarily it feels like in past seasons they've had home games or neutral site games leading into the beginning of the Big Ten. I really like the fact, obviously, this Rutgers team isn't real good, but I do like the fact that they've already been to Tuscaloosa, played in a really big time true road environment once, and even the Kentucky exhibition game for that matter. If you just needed one game to throw away and like, hey, Meyer, Jacobson, whoever else, like get used to what a road environment's going to look like. So they've seen that twice now before they start Big Ten play.
Yeah, kind of looking through, it seems 50-50. Some years they have played a true road, some years they definitely haven't, but definitely a good call. They have that experience against a good Alabama team that they hopefully should be able to rely on.
All right, predictions, Joe.
Uh, Purdue wins, and I think that they win 89, 88 to 61. I think this is a blowout.
So the only team to score more than 70 in a win against Rutgers is Tennessee. There's been a couple teams score over 70, but Rutgers won by 10 to 15 against those teams. I'm going to go a little bit lower. I do think it'll be a blowout, but I'm going to go like 83 to 56.
All right. I respect it. So it is a game. Purdue's favored 80 to 65 per Ken Palm. I assume they're somewhere around, will be somewhere around there for like sports books and things like that. But a game that Purdue should take care of. But at the same time, we've seen before that doesn't necessarily mean that they automatically do it. So we will break down the game following the final buzzer, pretty much right after, right here on Boilers in the Stand. So make sure to like and subscribe on the way out. It is Purdue at Rutgers, an 8 o'clock Eastern time tip, and that is on FS1. Rutgers have a tough week this week. They play Purdue and then at Michigan. So gonna be interesting to see what they do. But regardless, Purdue has to go in, take care of business, start Big Ten play 1-0, and move to what would that be 8-0 on the season. Appreciate everybody tuning in, and we will see you after the game.